Good evening, I'm Savannah Guthrie, and tonight we begin with a developing story that's sending shockwaves across the globe. What started as a routine political exchange has suddenly escalated into a high-stakes situation with serious consequences for millions. Sources say the decisions made in the last 24 hours could reshape economic stability, international relations, and everyday life sooner than anyone expected. The question now is not if this will have an impact, but how severe it will be. In a stunning confrontation at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, President Donald Trump publicly rebuked Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, declaring that Canada lives because of the United States and demanding the Canadian leader remember to be grateful for American support. The extraordinary rebuke, delivered Wednesday before a gathering of global leaders and business elites, marks what many analysts are calling an unprecedented fracture in one of the world's most stable bilateral relationships. The exchange that changed everything. The clash erupted after Carney delivered what observers are calling a historic speech Tuesday, warning that the world has entered a rupture, not a transition, in the international order. Without naming Trump directly, Carney declared that great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons, tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. Trump's response was swift and pointed. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, the president told the Davos audience. I watched your prime minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. They should be grateful to the U.S., Canada. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. The personal nature of Trump's attack, directly addressing Carney by his first name, signals a dramatic departure from the diplomatic norms that have governed U.S.-Canada relations for generations. For context, the two nations share the world's longest undefended border and maintain a trading relationship worth nearly $2 trillion annually, with more than $5 billion in goods and services crossing between them every single day. What's really at stake? The implications of this deteriorating relationship extend far beyond hurt feelings at a Swiss ski resort. According to Statistics Canada, 76% of Canadian exports go to the United States, meaning that any significant disruption to cross-border trade could devastate Canadian industries and communities while simultaneously driving up costs for American consumers and businesses. The automotive sector represents ground zero for this economic confrontation. Vehicles are Canada's second largest export by value at $46.5 billion in 2024, with 92% destined for U.S. markets. Trump has already celebrated what he calls damage to the Canadian auto industry, telling workers at a Ford factory in Dearborn, Michigan last week that Americans don't need cars made in Canada. Assembly plants in Brampton and Ingersoll, Ontario have been idled since Trump launched his trade war, with automakers like General Motors and Stellantis announcing new U.S. investments, though preliminary data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics actually shows a contraction in American auto jobs over the past year, despite Trump's rhetoric. A new world order emerges. What makes this moment particularly consequential is the broader geopolitical realignment it represents. Carney's speech articulated what many world leaders are privately acknowledging: the post-World War II rules-based international order, long dominated by American hegemony, is collapsing. For decades, countries like Canada prospered under what we called the rules-based international order, Carney told the Davos audience. We knew the story was partially false, that the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically. This fiction was useful. This bargain no longer works. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen echoed these concerns hours before Trump's speech, telling lawmakers that the shift in the international order is not only seismic, but it is permanent, and the sheer speed of change far outstrips anything we have seen in decades. Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever was even more blunt. Until now, we tried to appease the new president, but now so many red lines have been crossed that you have to choose your self-respect. Being a happy vassal is one thing. Being an unhappy slave is something else entirely. Canada's strategic pivot. Perhaps the most significant development is Canada's rapid diversification away from American dependence. In recent months, Carney's government has signed 12 trade and security deals across 4 continents, concluded new strategic partnerships with China and Qatar, and is negotiating free trade pacts with India, ASEAN member states, Thailand, Philippines, and Mercosur. Most dramatically, Canada has agreed to a comprehensive strategic partnership with the European Union, including joining SAFE, the European Defence Procurement Arrangements, a move that would have been unthinkable in previous decades when Canada's military and defence industries were deeply integrated with American systems. Canada is also doubling its defence spending by the end of the decade, investing in over-the-horizon radar systems, submarines, and aircraft, while building up domestic defense industries rather than relying on American suppliers. The Greenland factor. Underlying much of this tension is Trump's aggressive campaign to acquire Greenland, the semi-autonomous Danish territory that has become an unlikely flashpoint. Trump has threatened tariffs and even military action against NATO allies who oppose his Greenland ambitions, though at Davos he somewhat walked back those threats, saying, "I won't use force," while acknowledging he won't use force to take the territory. Carney used his Davos speech to declare that Canada strongly opposes tariffs over Greenland and stands firmly with Greenland and Denmark, stating that Canada fully supports their unique right to determine Greenland's future. What comes next? The immediate economic consequences are already visible. Stock markets plunged Tuesday after Trump threatened 8 NATO members with new tariffs. Canada's share of exports to the U.S. fell to their lowest level ever outside the COVID-19 pandemic years in October, according to official data, evidence that Canadian businesses are already hedging against American unpredictability. Longer term, analysts warn that Trump's policies may be pushing traditional American allies into China's embrace. Carney's recent strategic partnership with Beijing, which mutually eased tariffs, including on Chinese electric vehicles, represents precisely the kind of geopolitical realignment that could diminish American influence for generations. Matthew Spector, a historian at the University of California at Berkeley, observed that Carney's speech rips the Band-Aid off the fraying liberal order in a way that signals irreversible change. Perhaps most telling was Carney's conclusion to his Davos address, delivered in a tone of defiant resignation. "We are taking the sign out of the window. We know the old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy.